The Qatari Foreign Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani confirmed that a technical team from his country was deployed to Afghanistan roughly 24 hours ago. They're there to assess how to get that airport up and running. Obviously, a lot of it was destroyed either by the huge amount of crowds who descended on it or intentionally by the occupying American forces as they left there. So it does require some sort of reconstruction or rebuilding. But the more important one is who is going to be running it, who's going to be manning it. And to that, the Qatari Foreign Minister said that his government was in talks with the Turks as well as obviously the Taliban, the new rulers on the ground, to come up with some sort of a mechanism, although that deal hadn't yet been finalized. He did indicate or point to the fact that they do expect something to be agreed within the coming days, which was corroborated to a certain extent by word we're hearing from sources inside Afghanistan who say the Taliban are hoping that domestic flights will be resuming in the next few days and possibly international flights within a week or so. A senior Qatari source told me that the initial flights that Qatar would be helping to operate would be either humanitarian or evacuation ones. That is their main focus for now, not necessarily civilian ones.
Well, Afghanistan's new government will face an economy on the brink of collapse. Prices of essential goods, including food and fuel, have soared, while the U.S. has frozen about $10 billion in national reserves, mostly held abroad. Nearly half of Afghanistan's population already rely on aid. Before the Taliban took over Afghanistan, 90% of the population lived in poverty. And with the flow of international aid trickling to a stop, 38 million Afghans are now facing food shortages. The UN says its stockpile of emergency food for hundreds of thousands of Afghans will be exhausted by the end of this month. And with winter approaching, the UN says it needs $200 million to feed the most vulnerable. It needs a total of $1.3 billion for its overall aid efforts. And the World Health Organization says it needs medicine for hospitals, food for malnourished children, and supplies for COVID-19 measures. Well, the WHO stressed that hospitals across Afghanistan could soon run out of supplies. Charles Stratford has been to one of the busiest facilities in the capital, Kabul, and sent us this report.
We went to a dialysis ward here, people being treated on dialysis machines. The doctors very concerned there. This, in fact, is a World Bank funded project. They haven't received any money for about 3 months now. That means none of the staff have been paid. They're running very low on vital equipment and medicine in that department. One doctor said that if the people there being treated do not get treatment on a regular basis, they could die within 2 weeks. They also spoke about the fact that some medicines had arrived this morning, but only enough for a week. They were delivered by the organisation Médecins Sans Frontières, and they were actually for the emergency department, not the dialysis department here. Horrific scenes as well. One poor elderly woman on a stretcher, choking on her own blood in a terrible state. The elevators don't work, simple things like that. She was having to be taken up on a stretcher 4 stories to the ward to be treated. So horrific and worrying scenes there. We also went to the oncology department. Now this department is funded, or was funded, by the former government. A similar scenario there. The budget had been signed off by the government, but they hadn't seen any money yet. Big concerns there that the Taliban were not going to sign off on this money for whatever reason, whether it be seeing that money could be used in a different sector. Again, salaries hadn't been paid. And death rates, mortality rates are going up all the time anyway. Certainly people dying from cancer, again, because of what people here say is the mismanagement of funds that should be put towards raising greater awareness. Many of the people coming to this hospital with stage 4 cancer and in a terrible state. So the situation here, certainly if this hospital, and as I say, it is the largest in Afghanistan, is anything to go by, the health sector in this country is hemorrhaging, and there are serious concerns that the withholding of international money could make things even worse.
People in eastern Afghanistan are getting used to seeing Taliban guards on the streets. 2 weeks since the city of Jalalabad was taken without a fight, the Taliban says it's establishing a system of security and justice. But the group faces an uphill struggle to solve socio-economic concerns. Osama bin Javaid was given exclusive access to the city after the U.S. withdrawal was complete.
A few weeks ago, Afghans had to go through rigorous security to play football in the park next to the governor's house in Jalalabad. Since the governor handed over control of the city to the Taliban, they don't need permission. They say they continue to play in their kits without any problem. Less than half an hour ago at the same venue, Taliban leaders from Nangarhar province were addressing people. Most of those in the stadium gathered to show their support for the Taliban.
We're very excited. After 20 years, the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan is back, as the former government was illegitimate. Now everyone is very happy and we have a peaceful Afghanistan. No one is stopping us from saying anything on social media.
Jalalabad is the provincial capital and it's on a crucial eastern trade route with Pakistan. Taliban leaders are content with their 2-week progress as the focus remains on security and rooting out corruption.
There's peace now in Nangarhar province. Everyone feels secure, which has encouraged them to continue with their business. Earlier, that wasn't possible, and people used to close their shops before sunset as they were afraid of being robbed and killed. But now, shops are open till midnight, and people are happy.
There was no violence when the Taliban took over, but business is slower than before. Banks are closed and many people are concerned about the future.
They remember the Taliban from 20 years ago, and there are also traders who are concerned about the dwindling business prospects in the last 2 weeks, despite this being a period of security and safety.
Shafiullah sells a popular local sweet known here as Ash. Even before the Taliban came in, thousands of government employees had not received their salaries for months, and he's been struggling to attract customers.
We're all happy that there's peace, but we're all concerned about our businesses, as there's hardly any activity. People are suffering. The Taliban must do something and should connect with neighbouring countries to improve trade.
Even though fewer women venture out, there's relative peace in Jalalabad with its usual traffic jams and loud horns. We asked the Taliban why people are scared of them. They say 60,000 soldiers from this province have died fighting them in the last 2 decades. It will take time for their families to believe that the Taliban are not out for revenge. As Jalalabad's new rulers celebrate victory and work towards establishing a government, people pray these fighters can also maintain the social and economic fabric of the city's vibrant society.